Hello and welcome to Inside Out Southwest, stories and investigations from where you live. Tonight, the Jersey child abuse scandal. Will a long-awaited inquiry bring justice to victims?
This is the last chance for the survivors to be able to have their say, for the truth to be exposed and for everything to be documented and evidenced.
And as police investigate claims on the island against Jimmy Savile, we speak to the man who ran the Jersey abuse inquiry.
If we had got that evidence, all of what's happening now might not be happening, because we would have gone and got him.
I'm Sam Smith and this is Inside Out Southwest. The Jimmy Savile scandal is posing tough questions of many institutions, including the BBC. The criminal investigation into Savile and his possible accomplices in child abuse has thrown the spotlight onto Jersey and the island's past inquiry into the abuse of children in care. Campaigners hope there will now be prosecutions of suspects identified during that inquiry but never brought to court. The public face of Jimmy Savile.
Good morning, Spotlight viewers. Here we are in Jersey, creating a bit of little lounge, but it doesn't really matter because I'm going to sweep up afterwards with me selling tonight.
The DJ, TV star and charity fundraiser holding court at Jersey's Battle of Flowers in 1969.
I've got the my queen. Here's my queen. And she's gorgeous. My queen is so marvellous. She's the most beautiful queen you've ever saw in your life. How about that then?
But the revelations about Savile's dark side have revived appalling memories on the island. Sarah was abused for years at Jersey's now notorious children's home, Haute de la Garenne. Now she lives in chaos, dependent on alcohol. But she's clear about one thing.
Jimmy Savile came to Haute de la Garenne. He came several times.
Sarah says she became a victim of Savile during one of his regular visits to the home in the 70s.
He was a dirty bastard.
Carrie Modrell campaigns for victims of abuse.
She told me that in 2008 she went to the police on other accusations whilst living at Haute de la Garenne on abuse that she suffered, and that she'd also mentioned that Jimmy Savile had visited. They were in the Great Hall at Haute de la Garenne and he started touching her inappropriately, hands rubbing up and down her body and trying to put his hand up her skirt. She was 11 at the time. Her sister, who was also there, was 9 at the time. And I believe that because of the abuse she was already suffering, she knew what was going to happen or likely to happen. And she quickly got away from him, grabbed her sister and dragged them out of the hall.
As disturbing as such allegations are, Savile is only the most high profile of a number of suspected abusers linked to Jersey's care homes. Victims like Sarah believe the island's authorities failed to bring not just Savile to book, but many other perpetrators. She's one of more than 100 people now claiming compensation for what they suffered. Joe, who says he was abused while in care, is one of them.
Well, sexual abuse and other things happened. I was in there for more than 18 months, and the abuse went on almost the full 18 months.
And did you tell anybody about it?
I was told not to.
By
the persons, because we were just children. If we told anyone, they wouldn't believe us anyway.
Joe, Sarah and others feel they've been denied justice, despite a long and costly inquiry into allegations of abuse on Jersey stretching back to the 1940s. What had lain a dark secret for so many decades began to be exposed in 2006, when the then commanding officer of the Jersey Sea Cadets was arrested for downloading pornographic images. Jersey police began reviewing other complaints. They made their investigation public, and by 2007, nearly 70 people had come forward with allegations of abuse. Sarah decided it was time to tell her story, and her son went to the police with her.
My mum gave details of what happened, very harrowing details. I found it very, very distressing to be there with my mum, but I felt I had to support her because there was no one else.
The flood of allegations against Saville has brought back his mum's worst memories.
The news reignites this. Recently, Jimmy Saville, she's crumbled under it. She's not strong enough to cope with it.
Jersey police say they have no record of Sarah reporting abuse by Saville. They do say, however, they had a complaint about him from someone else. The man, John, recently went on Jersey's Channel TV to repeat what he told police in 2009.
He put me on his knee and then he put his hand up my leg, and then it went further, and that was it. When he finished doing whatever he did, I felt dirty afterwards, and horrid.
We've learned that John's complaint was passed to the island's prosecutors, who decided there wasn't enough evidence to proceed.
I am very, very angry because I did mention it to the police before, and I don't think they even spoke to him.
The officer who started the wider abuse investigation had retired by then.
I never saw a statement saying that Jimmy Saville assaulted me. I wish I had. I really wish I had, because if we had got that evidence, all of what's happening now might not be happening, because we would have gone and got him. That would have been a huge, significant boost to the confidence of the victims if we had gone and arrested Jimmy Saville. And I make no apologies for saying that, because we were in that situation at the time where we needed to boost the confidence of the victims in coming forward because they'd been so badly treated.
While John's allegation didn't lead to a prosecution, the wider inquiry had been making progress since 2008, when a disturbing find ignited media interest worldwide.
This was not a chance discovery. Specialist police search teams have been working their way through Haute de la Garenne and its grounds since Tuesday. This morning they discovered what appear to be the remains of a child's body.
Harper had received allegations of torture and even possible child murder at Haute de la Garenne, so he ordered a search of the home. And under this stairwell was found what appeared to be part of a child's skull.
Obviously we now have a duty to make sure that there are no other remains there, and if they are, then we have to find them.
As the search went on, the team found around 60 teeth and what appeared to be more human remains.
We found a number of human bones which were sent off to a laboratory at Sheffield University. The anthropologist in the laboratory there, Professor Chamberlain, I think, said that in his opinion the bones were human juvenile, said that they had been fleshed and fresh when they had been burnt and buried, and as you can imagine, this set alarm bells ringing.
But the scientists couldn't accurately date the bones, and while initial tests on the skull-like fragment indicated it could have been human, another expert suggested it was actually a piece of wood or coconut. That was a blow to the reputation of the inquiry and the officers in charge. An independent report criticised Harper's handling of the investigation, in particular his releases to the media. Today, Harper is unapologetic for searching the building.
In many ways, I suppose, it was a diversion which led to nothing, but it was a road that we had no choice but to go down. And I think if we'd walked away at any stage, then I'd be sitting here now trying to defend the indefensible, because we really had no choice but to go in there.
Despite this development, Harper and his team were amassing files of evidence against a mounting number of suspects. They included police officers, civil servants, and members of the caring professions.
When I left, we had what I termed 18 priority suspects, but we had well over 100. So I think it was somewhere in the region of 150 suspects. We would have put forward files on most of the 18 priority suspects, and I think that I reckon that I had enough evidence to charge probably 12 of them.
So far, 4 people connected to Oak de la Garenne have been prosecuted. Gordon Wateridge, who worked there, was jailed for indecent assaults. Former resident Michael Obin pleaded guilty to gross indecency, and house parents Morag and Anthony Jordan were jailed for cruelty. Their trial was the last to be held in connection with the care home abuse inquiry, which closed in December 2010. Now retired in Scotland, Lenny Harper remains convinced that there are other suspects who could have been brought to court. Some of those cases were turned down by the Office of the Attorney General, the island's chief prosecutor.
So on a number of occasions when the Law Officers Department, through the Attorney General's office, foisted decisions on us that I did not approve of and felt was wrong and morally wrong, then I made it public, and that led to a breakdown in my relationship with the Attorney General and the Law Officers Department. But no, I wasn't satisfied with the way that Operation Rectangle turned out, because I knew there were a lot of people who should have been charged who weren't.
Jersey's Attorney General told us that it was decided these cases did not pass the evidential test. He said the detailed reasons for those decisions were set out in public statements made in 2008 and 2009, and that as far as he was aware, no one had ever challenged the accuracy of the factual assertions made in those written statements. But lawyer Alan Collins, who is acting for more than 50 people who are claiming compensation, says he understands the concerns over some prosecution decisions.
I struggle to understand why, in some cases, the evidence was not allowed to be tested in the courts. And so I can understand where the victims are coming from. But, for all we know, there may well be legitimate, very credible explanations. Okay? But that's not clear. And I can certainly recall one example where a particular victim was told that there was going to be a prosecution, and to be told, no, there wasn't going to be a prosecution. So you can easily understand, as a result of being told that there is confusion, which then engenders suspicion and concern.
In 2008, an investigation was promised by the Jersey government. 4 years later, the terms of reference for such an inquiry have finally been announced. They've waited a long time, but victims and their advocates hope it will lead to some shelved cases being reopened.
This is the last chance for the survivors to be able to have their say, for the truth to be exposed, and for everything to be documented and evidenced.
The man in charge of criminal justice policy in Jersey says the inquiry will have a wide remit, but that it might not necessarily mean cases being revisited.
Part and parcel of this inquiry process is going to be looking at the process that was followed by prosecutors in relation to reaching their decisions.
If we discover there have been weaknesses and faults and we've let these people down, the judicial system has let these people down, what are we going to do about it? Have you decided that?
This is more complicated than you're making it. I don't think prosecutors will be able to revisit cases already being looked at.
Why not?
Unless there's new evidence.
Why not?
Why not?
Yes.
Well, there might be cases which they could do. I mean, if
so they could relook at some of these cases.
In some cases, they have.
Do you think they should?
I'm happy to leave it to the inquiry to come up with a view in relation to specific cases.
Haven't these people waited long enough?
The criminal justice process never moves very fast, I'm afraid. in relation to matters. At the moment, we do not know if mistakes were made by prosecutors.
Jersey's government has apologised for failings in the care system and pledged compensation of up to £60,000 for each victim. But those who grew up suffering cruelty, neglect and sexual abuse say they also want to see their tormentors in court.
Money's not the point here. It's getting justice. It's getting justice. It's devastated my life. To be a Jersey man, and the system there is supposed to be there to work for you, and it's working against you is wrong. It's wrong.
I just hope that with the Jimmy Savile affair bringing all this back into the limelight again, that justice for the victims is now going to happen.
I've had to watch my mother go from somebody who was one of the funniest people, one of the most happy-go-lucky people, to a real shadow of herself. She's just not the person she was. Care. They were in care, and it's the one thing they never got. Care.
The independent inquiry is due to begin next year. A little more waiting, but also a little more hope for those who say this is their last chance for justice. And if you've been affected by any of the issues in tonight's programme, you can call the BBC Action Line on 0800 077 077. That's 0800 077 077. Calls are confidential and free from a landline. Next tonight,